A poor girl holds her mother's photo and asks a billionaire for help. "I need to buy medicine for my mommy." But when he looks, he shouts, "This woman saved my life." The November wind cut like a razor as Joel Marston adjusted his scarf, leaving Bellini's. He had dined alone, as he did every Wednesday. A ritual he kept religiously. A table in the back, a medium-rare filet mignon, a glass of expensive red wine. Always alone, always in control. At 38, Joel had achieved what many men would consider a successful life. Marston Consulting was a leader in corporate restructuring, and his signature on a contract was enough to calm nervous shareholders. His apartment occupied the penthouse of one of the city's most exclusive buildings, his car imported, his watch Swiss, his personal life non-existent. "Good evening, Mr. Marston. Same time next week?" asked the maître d', holding the door. Joel nodded, handing over his usual generous tip. "Of course, Thomas. Thank you." The cold hit him like a slap. The temperature had plummeted in recent days, heralding a harsh winter. Joel quickened his pace, eager to get to his car parked a block away. He passed a group of loud teenagers, a couple embracing, a man sleeping on a bench. The city at night was a kaleidoscope of lives that didn't touch, all close, all isolated. As he walked, her image surfaced in his mind, as it occasionally had for the past 4 years. Those intense green eyes, full of a strength that had surprised him. The way she acted without hesitation while everyone around them froze. Her refusal to accept any thanks beyond a simple "you're welcome." He had never met anyone like her before or since. Joel reached his car, a luxury German sedan parked under a streetlight. He was about to unlock it when he noticed something unusual. A small figure crouched beside the vehicle, vigorously scrubbing the bumper with a piece of cloth. "Hey!" he called out, approaching quickly. "Shai, what are you doing there?" The figure jumped up, revealing a tiny girl, perhaps 5 years old, huddled inside a coat far too large for her frail body. Brown hair fell in messy curls around a pale face. Her eyes, enormous and green, stared at him with a mixture of fear and determination. "I'm cleaning," she answered, holding up a dirty rag. "It's how to earn money." Joel looked at the car. The bumper gleamed where she had scrubbed, standing out from the rest of the slightly dusty vehicle. "Who told you to do this?" he asked, looking around, searching for an adult exploiting child labor. "Nobody," the girl replied, holding his gaze with a firmness surprising for someone so small. "I need money for my mom's medicine." Something in the determination of that gaze made Joel hesitate. It wasn't the first time he'd seen children begging on the streets, but there was something different about this one, a dignity, a seriousness that didn't match her age. "Your mom is sick?" he asked, crouching slightly to be closer to her level. The girl nodded, her trembling chin revealing the effort to hold back tears. "She has a high fever. She hasn't been able to get out of bed since yesterday." Joel felt a pang of compassion, quickly followed by caution. The city was full of scams, of stories fabricated to elicit pity. He was about to give the girl a few dollars and send her on her way when she pulled something from her coat pocket. "My mom is sick." She held out a folded, crumpled piece of paper. "Can you help?" Joel took the paper, more out of politeness than real interest. Under the streetlight, he saw it was a photo, an old Polaroid, its edges worn. It showed a young woman smiling, perhaps in her early 20s, with the same brown curls as the little girl. There was something familiar about that face, that smile, those intense green eyes. And then, like a lightning strike, the memory hit him. "This woman saved my life." The exclamation came out too loud, making the girl flinch in fear. Passers-by glanced over curiously but soon continued on their way, uninterested in someone else's drama. Joel held the photo tighter, moving it closer to the light. It was her, no doubt. The woman who had been in his thoughts just minutes before. The waitress who, 4 years ago, had noticed he was choking in the very same restaurant he had just left. While everyone around him froze in panic, she had acted with surprising speed, performing the Heimlich maneuver and dislodging the piece of steak blocking his airway. He had only had time to thank her quickly, still catching his breath. She smiled, said it was nothing, and went back to work. There were no names exchanged, no conversation, no offers of money. Just that brief, intense moment, forever etched in his memory. For weeks, he thought about going back to the restaurant to find her again, to thank her properly. But life moved on. Weeks turned into months, and the moment passed. Still, her image never completely left him. Joel looked at the little girl again, now with new eyes. The same intense green eyes. The same rebellious curls, the same determined chin despite the fear. "Are you her daughter?" he asked, kneeling to her level. The girl nodded, a glimmer of hope appearing in her eyes. "My name is Lena," she said, extending a small hand in a surprisingly formal gesture. Joel took her fragile hand, a lump forming in his throat. "Nice to meet you, Lena. I'm Joel. Your mother. She really saved my life once. She saves everyone," Lena replied with the simplicity of a child. "But now she needs help." Joel looked at his watch. It was almost 10 at night. He had an important meeting the next morning. Documents to review, calls to make. "Where do you live?" he asked, surprising himself. Lena pointed vaguely to the east. "Far." "But I know the way." Joel made a decision that went against all his self-preservation instincts. "Let's go in my car. You can show me where it is." The girl's face lit up as if the sun had appeared in the middle of the night. "Really? You're going to help my mommy?" "Really," Joel replied, opening the car door for her. "Let's go." Lena got into the car with a mix of excitement and nervousness, her small fingers touching the soft leather of the seats as if it was something precious. Joel realized she had probably never been in a car like this. "You have to wear your seatbelt," he said, helping her buckle up. Her fingers were trembling slightly, and Joel noticed she was cold. He turned the heat on full blast. "What's your mother's name?" he asked as he pulled out of the parking spot. "Marley," Lena replied, her eyes fixed on the window, guiding him. "Marley Quinn." Marley Quinn. He finally had a name for the face that had visited his thoughts for 4 years. Joel's car seemed out of place in the narrow streets Lena guided him through. They left the elegant business district behind, passed through an area of old apartment buildings, and finally reached a part of the city Joel knew only by name, the kind of place he avoided on his daily commutes. "It's there." Lena pointed to a worn-down brick building, 4 stories high with a poorly lit entrance. Joel parked, looking apprehensively at the surroundings. It wasn't exactly a dangerous neighborhood, but it was certainly far from prosperous. The kind of place where people lived on the edge, from paycheck to paycheck, rent to rent. "Which floor?" he asked, getting out of the car and helping Lena down. "3rd, the elevator's broken." They entered the building. The lobby smelled of dampness and cheap disinfectant. A single bulb flickered, precariously illuminating the staircase. "Do you always come up alone?" Joel asked, looking at the worn steps. Lena nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "When Mommy works at night, yeah. If I have a key and everything." Joel tried to imagine this tiny child climbing these 3 flights alone, unlocking the door, spending hours by herself while her mother worked. The thought deeply disturbed him. They climbed in silence, Lena leading the way with the familiarity of someone who walks the same path every day. On the 3rd floor, she took a key from her coat pocket and, after some difficulty, opened the door marked 305. "Mommy," she called, stepping inside. "I brought help." The apartment was small but surprisingly cozy, a living room that also served as a kitchen, with simple but well-kept furniture. Everything was impeccably clean, despite the evident wear on the furniture, the floor and the walls that needed a new coat of paint. On the wall, Joel noticed children's drawings carefully hung. On a small table, he saw what looked like cloth dolls in various stages of completion, along with colorful threads and needles. "This way," Lena said, pulling him by the hand toward a half-open door. The bedroom was as simple as the rest of the apartment. A double bed, an old dresser, a chair by the window. On the bed, Marley Quinn was propped up on pillows, her eyes closed, her face flushed with fever. "Mommy," Lena called softly, touching her arm. "He came to help." Marley slowly opened her eyes, her gaze initially unfocused from the fever. When she saw Joel standing in the doorway, she frowned, confused. "Lena, what?" "He's the man you saved," the girl explained quickly. At the restaurant, Joel took a step forward, feeling strangely nervous. For 4 years, this woman had existed only as a memory, a fleeting image in his mind. Seeing her now, real and tangible, was surprisingly impactful. "Hello, Marley. I don't know if you remember me. Joel Marston. You saved me 4 years ago at Bellini's. I was choking and—" "The man with the stake," Marley interrupted, a faint recognition dawning in her eyes. Her voice was hoarse and weakened. "Lena, how did you—" "I was cleaning his car," the girl confessed, lowering her head, "to get money for your medicine." Joel saw the embarrassment on Marley's face, a mixture of shame and concern. "Lena, we don't—" "She showed me your picture," Joel explained quickly. "When I recognized you, I couldn't just ignore it." Marley tried to sit up straighter, but a coughing fit stopped her. Lena rushed to get a glass of water from the nightstand. "Pneumonia," Marley explained after taking a sip. "At least that's what the doctor at the clinic said. He prescribed antibiotics, but—" She let the sentence trail off, and Joel understood the unspoken part. The medicine was too expensive. "Do you have the prescription?" he asked, resolute. Marley hesitated, pride warring with need. "We don't need—" "Please," Joel interrupted. "You saved my life once. Let me return the favor." Their eyes met, hers feverish but still steady, his determined. Finally, Marley gave a slight nod. "In the kitchen drawer," she said. "Thank you." Lena led him to the indicated drawer, from which she pulled a folded piece of paper, the prescription dated 3 days ago. "Mummy got worse today," she explained in a low voice. "She couldn't even get up to make my dinner. That's when I took the picture and went out. I knew your car was nice. I thought maybe I could earn some money cleaning it." Joel felt a mix of admiration and sadness. This child had risked going out alone at night, approaching strangers, because her mother was too sick to care for her. "You were very brave," he said, putting the prescription in his pocket. "I'm going to get the medicine right now. Is there a 24-hour pharmacy nearby?" Lena nodded. "On the main avenue. We passed it in the car." "Great. I'll be back in a little while." Before leaving, Joel returned to the bedroom to reassure Marley, "I'm going to get the medication. Don't worry about anything right now." Marley watched him with a complex expression, gratitude mixed with something that almost looked like suspicion. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice weak but direct. Joel thought for a moment. In truth, he didn't exactly know himself. Maybe it was the chance to finally thank her properly. Maybe it was Lena's vulnerability, or Marley's quiet dignity fighting through the fever, or maybe it was something deeper he couldn't name. "Because I can," he answered simply, "and because, somehow, I feel like I owed you this." The pharmacy was nearly empty at that hour. Joel handed the prescription to the pharmacist, who studied the paper with a neutral expression. "There are 3 different medications here," the man explained. "The antibiotic, a fever reducer, and an expectorant. Will you be taking all of them?" "Yes, all of them," Joel replied without hesitation. While the pharmacist prepared the medications, Joel walked the store's aisles, adding items to his basket. Vitamins, extra cough syrup, painkillers, herbal tea. He also remembered to buy a few treats for Lena: hot chocolate, mild cookies, fruit juice. The total came to nearly $200. Joel handed over his card without flinching, signing the receipt with an automatic flourish. For him, it was less than what he'd spend on a bottle of wine. For Marley, he suspected, it was an unattainable fortune. On the way back, he stopped at a small grocery store that was still open, buying basic food items: bread, milk, eggs, fruit, something for Lena's breakfast. When he returned to the apartment, he found the little girl sitting patiently on the sofa, her legs dangling, not reaching the floor. She fell asleep, Lena informed him in a low voice when Joel entered. But her fever didn't go down. "I put a wet cloth on her forehead, like she does when I'm sick." Joel felt a tightness in his chest. This child was taking care of her mother as best she could, reversing roles out of necessity. "You did a great job," he said, placing the bags on the table. "So now we'll give her the medicine, and she'll get better soon." Lena nodded seriously, helping to unpack the groceries with the competence of someone much older. She knew exactly where to put each item, explaining to Joel matter-of-factly where things went. "Is this hot chocolate?" she asked, holding the can with wide eyes. "It is. I thought you might like some." The smile that lit up her face did something strange to Joel's chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. Together, they prepared a tray with water and the first of the medications. Joel let Lena lead the way to the bedroom, watching how she approached her mother carefully, touching her forehead to check her fever. "Mommy," she called softly. "The medicine is here." Marley opened her eyes, blinking slowly. "Lena, what?" Her gaze found Joel, and she seemed to remember. "You came back." There was genuine surprise in her voice, as if she hadn't really expected him to return. "Of course," Joel replied, approaching with the tray. "So I brought the medicine and a few things for you to eat." Marley tried to sit up, and Joel instinctively moved forward to help her, placing another pillow behind her back. She was hot, her skin burning with fever. "Thank you," she said, accepting the pill and the glass of water Lena offered her. How much was all this?" Joel shook his head. "Daz, don't worry about that. But I need to know how much." "Consider it a debt repaid," Joel interrupted gently. "You saved my life, Marley. Literally. Let me help now." She studied him for a long moment, her green eyes, so much like her daughter's, piercing his as if searching for something beyond the words. Finally, she nodded slightly. "I appreciate it so much," she said with dignity, despite her weak voice. "It's not easy for me to accept help, but for Lena, I'll accept anything." Joel watched the exchange of looks between mother and daughter, a bond of love so strong, so evident, he could almost feel it physically in the air between them. "I'll be okay, sweetie," Marley assured her daughter. "The medicine will start working soon." Lena nodded, but she didn't seem entirely convinced. "Do you need anything else?" Joel asked. "I can make something to eat, or..." "You've already done more than enough," Marley replied. "Honestly, I didn't expect, well, people don't usually care." The sentence, said without self-pity, merely as a statement of fact, hit Joel deeply. He too lived in a world where people rarely genuinely cared for one another, where relationships were transactions, where everything had a price or a purpose. "I'll come back tomorrow to see how you are," he said, surprising himself with the promise. Marley shook her head slightly. "You don't have to bother. You've done more than enough," she said firmly, despite her weak voice. "The medicine is all we needed. We'll be fine now." Joel noticed the definitive tone in her voice. There was gratitude, but also a clear message. The help had been accepted, and nothing more was needed. Her pride was almost palpable, even in her weakened state. "Of course," he replied, understanding. "I hope you feel better soon." Lena looked from one to the other, her expression a mix of confusion and disappointment. She opened her mouth as if to protest, but a look from her mother made her reconsider. Joel picked up his coat, feeling strangely reluctant to leave. "If you need anything, we'll be fine," Marley reaffirmed. "Thank you again for what you did tonight." He nodded, understanding the unspoken message. The moment of connection was ending, the door closing. "Bye, Mr. Joel," Lena said, her small voice filled with a formality that broke his heart. "Thank you for the hot chocolate." "You're welcome, Lena," he replied, smiling at the girl. "It was a pleasure to meet you." As he left the apartment, Joel looked back one last time. Lena was sitting on the edge of her mother's bed, holding her hand, talking softly. The apartment was small and simple, the furniture worn, the walls in need of paint. But there was a warmth there, a dignity, a love that made his own luxury apartment seem cold and empty in comparison. As he walked down the stairs, Joel thought about the strange turn his evening had taken. He had gone out for his usual lonely dinner, and now found himself involved in the lives of two strangers who somehow no longer seemed so strange. For the first time in a long time, Joel Marston felt something other than the controlled emptiness he called a life. And surprisingly, he was in no hurry to return to it. Joel's apartment seemed strangely empty when he finally got home, 42 floors above the city, with a panoramic view of the Central Park. Impeccable decor chosen by a renowned designer. Everything exactly as he had left it. Perfect. Controlled. Empty. He poured himself a whiskey and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below like artificial stars. His kingdom, his success, his loneliness. He tried to review the documents for the next morning's meeting, but the words danced before his eyes without making sense. The image of Lena and Marley kept returning, the tiny girl cleaning his car in the cold night, the mother fighting a fever with quiet dignity. Annoyed with his own distraction, Joel closed the folder and drank the rest of the whiskey in one gulp. He needed to sleep. Tomorrow would be another day. Things would go back to normal. This unexpected encounter would just be a good deed to tell at some boring dinner party, an interesting story to impress some occasional date. But when he finally lay down, sleep wouldn't come. Joel stared at the ceiling, replaying the scene outside the restaurant. 4 years had passed since that woman saved his life. 4 years in which he continued his perfectly planned routine, building his empire, accumulating possessions that meant nothing to anyone, not even himself. And all this time, she had been there just a few miles away, struggling to raise a daughter alone, making cloth dolls to supplement her income, counting coins to buy medicine. The injustice of it bothered him deeply. "You've already done more than enough," Marley's words echoed in his mind. He knew she was being sincere. She truly believed that buying the medicine was enough help. Her pride wouldn't allow her to accept more, but Joel knew he could do more, much more. At 3 in the morning, he made a decision. He picked up his phone and sent an email to his assistant, canceling all his appointments for the next day. Then, he sent a message to his vice president, delegating the morning meeting. He offered no detailed explanation, just mentioned a personal emergency. When the sun began to rise, Joel was already dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a sweater, so different from his usual suits. He drove to a 24-hour supermarket and filled 2 carts, fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, dairy, bread, cereal, canned goods. He added cleaning supplies, toilet paper, children's shampoo. Then, he stopped at a department store that opened early and bought new blankets, towels, ease, and a portable heater. His decision was no longer rational, it was purely emotional. Something that hadn't happened in so long he had almost forgotten what it felt like. At 7 in the morning, he parked in front of the red brick building. The neighborhood looked even more worn in the daylight, the peeling facades more evident, the infrastructure problems impossible to ignore. Joel carried the bags up the stairs, his heart pounding with each step, and not just from the physical effort. What would he say to Marley? How would he explain his return after the clear dismissal the night before? As he hesitated in the hallway, the door to apartment 305 flew open. Lena burst out like a hurricane, her face red from crying, still in her pajamas from the night before. Upon seeing Joel, her eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and desperate relief. "Mr. Joel, Mommy won't wake up!" Joel dropped the bags immediately. What happened? She was better this morning. She took her medicine, but then she started shaking and now she won't answer when I call her, Lena explained between sobs, pulling him by the hand with surprising strength for someone so small. Inside the apartment, Joel ran to the bedroom. Marley was lying motionless, her face red and wet with sweat. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, and when Joel touched her forehead, he realized her fever had risen drastically. "Marley, can you hear me?" he called, lightly tapping her cheek. She moaned but didn't open her eyes. "I called 911, but they said the ambulance would take a while," Lena said, standing in the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold herself together. "I was going to ask the neighbor for help when you arrived." Joel didn't hesitate. "We're taking her to the hospital right now. Can you grab a coat for her? And maybe a change of clothes?" While Lena ran to the closet, Joel wrapped Marley in the bed's blanket and lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost fragile, her body burning against his chest. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Carrying Marley down the stairs was a challenge, but fear gave Joel a strength he didn't know he possessed. Lena followed close behind, carrying a small backpack with clothes and the medications. In the car, Joel laid Marley down on the back seat, while Lena sat in the front, the seatbelt looking too large for her small frame. "Which hospital are we going to?" the girl asked, her voice trembling but trying to sound grown up. To the best one, Joel answered, starting the engine. Memorial Hospital. It's about 10 minutes from here. That's very expensive, Lena said, worried. Mommy always goes to the community clinic. Joel felt a surge of anger, not directed at anyone in particular, just at the injustice of a world where a 5-year-old child already worried about the cost of medical care. Don't worry about that, he said, speeding through the morning streets. I just want your mom to get well. When they arrived at the hospital, Joel parked in the emergency area and ran inside carrying Marley. Lena followed him closely, her small steps almost a run to keep up. I need help, he shouted as soon as he entered the ER. High fever, possible pneumonia. She's unconscious. The medical team reacted quickly. A nurse brought a gurney, while another began checking Marley's vital signs. A young doctor appeared, asking rapid-fire questions that Joel tried to answer as best he could. How long has she had these symptoms? At least 3 days, he replied, looking to Lena for confirmation. The girl nodded. Is she taking any medication? She started antibiotics last night. I have them here, Lena said, opening the backpack and taking out the medications Joel had bought. The doctor nodded, examining the bottles. We're taking her in. We'll probably need to run some tests. Before Joel could say anything, they wheeled Marley through a set of double doors. He and Lena were left standing in the middle of the emergency room, suddenly alone amid the hospital chaos. A receptionist approached with a clipboard. Are you the husband? No, I'm a friend. You'll need to fill out these forms. Do you have her health insurance information? Joel looked at Lena, who shook her head. That's okay. I'll cover all the costs, he said, taking the clipboard. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs in the waiting room. As Joel tried to fill out what he could of the paperwork, he noticed how much Lena was trembling. Are you scared? He asked softly. Lena nodded, silent tears streaming down her small face. My grandma died. Now I only have my mommy, she said, her voice choked with emotion. I don't want to lose her too. The frankness of that statement hit Joel like a punch to the gut. This child, so small, already knew the fragility of life, the fear of loss, the possibility of complete loneliness. Without thinking, he took her small hand in his. You are not going to be alone, he said with a firmness that surprised him. Your mum is strong and the doctors here are the best in the city, and until she's better, I'll be here with you. Lena looked up at him, her intense green eyes shining with unshed tears. Promise? I promise. The word came out with a weight Joel hadn't expected. It was a real promise, not the kind of empty assurance adults often give children. For some reason he couldn't explain, he felt he wouldn't break this promise. The next few hours dragged on. Joel bought hot chocolate and sandwiches from the cafeteria. Lena drank the chocolate but barely touched the sandwich. They walked the halls when sitting still became unbearable. Finally, in the middle of the afternoon, the doctor returned. Mr. Marston. Joel stood up immediately, Lena clutching his hand. Mrs. Quinn has severe bacterial pneumonia. Her fever is high and she's dehydrated. We're going to admit her for intravenous antibiotic treatment. She'll need to stay for a few days. Is she going to be okay? Lena asked, her small voice barely reaching the doctor. The man crouched down to her eye level. Your mum is young and, despite the infection, she seems to be healthy. With the right treatment, she has an excellent chance of a full recovery. The relief Joel felt was almost physical, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Can we see her? He asked. She's sleeping now. We've given her medication to bring the fever down and she needs to rest. But you can go in briefly. They followed the doctor down white corridors to a hospital room. Marley was in the bed closest to the window, an IV line connected to her arm, monitors beeping softly beside her. Her face was less flushed, but she still had a worrisome pallor. Lena ran to the bedside, gently touching her mother's hand. It's going to be okay, Mommy, she whispered. We're here with you. Joel watched the scene, feeling simultaneously like an intruder and a part of that moment. It was strange how, in less than 24 hours, he felt so connected to these two people he barely knew. As evening fell, a nurse gently suggested they go home to rest, promising to call if there was any change. Joel looked at Lena, who looked ready to collapse from exhaustion but refused to let go of her mother's hand. "We can't go," the girl said, determined despite her fatigue. "What if she wakes up? She'll be scared all alone." Joel understood. Instead of insisting, he improvised. He pushed 2 armchairs from the waiting room together, making a small makeshift bed. He folded his coat into a pillow and asked a sympathetic nurse for extra blankets. "You can rest here," he told Lena, showing her the corner he had created. "I'll stay awake and watch over your mum. I promise I'll wake you if she stirs." Lena hesitated, but exhaustion won. She lay down on the joined chairs, curling up in the blanket. Within minutes, she was fast asleep, her small body finally surrendering to the day's emotional toll. Joel sat between Marley's bed and Lena's corner, feeling strangely at peace despite the circumstances. His important meeting, the unreviewed documents, the unreturned calls, none of it seemed to matter now. For the first time in years, perhaps since he became CEO of his own company, Joel Marston wasn't thinking about profits, contracts, or acquisitions. He was completely present in the moment, concerned only with the well-being of 2 people who, by a twist of fate, had entered his life. As he watched Lena's peaceful sleep and Marley's steady breathing, he felt something awaken within him, a purpose, a meaning he had lost somewhere on his journey to success. The image of the 2 of them, mother and daughter, simply wouldn't leave his head. And surprisingly, he didn't want it to. Marley's first week in the hospital established a pattern. Joel would arrive early, bringing clean clothes for Lena and something for her to eat besides hospital food. The doctor had explained that recovery would be slow. Marley's pneumonia was severe and required intensive care. She remained sedated most of the time, breathing with the help of oxygen. "Good morning, little one," Joel said, entering the waiting room where Lena had slept on the armchairs he'd pushed together to form a small bed. Lena rubbed her eyes, her messy hair pointing in every direction. "Did Mommy wake up?" It was always her first question. Joel smiled gently. "Not yet." But Nurse Rose said her vitals are improving. He handed her a sandwich and a juice box. "Breakfast?" Lena accepted without enthusiasm. For the first few days, she barely ate, too worried about her mother. Joel had learned he needed to be creative to get her to eat properly. "You know what I discovered?" he asked, sitting beside her. "That there's a secret diner in the hospital basement. They say it has the best hot chocolate in the city." Lena's green eyes lit up slightly. "Really?" "Absolutely. But we can only go after you finish this sandwich. Hospital rules." Lena bit into the sandwich, a small smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. Joel had already noticed how well she responded to little adventures, stories that transformed the grey reality of the hospital into something more bearable. "You always make that face when you're plotting something," she commented between bites. "What face?" Joel asked, genuinely surprised. "I like this." Lena furrowed her brow and raised an eyebrow, in a surprisingly accurate imitation of his expression. Joel laughed, a sound that seemed out of place in the hospital environment, but necessary. "I do not make that face." "Yes, you do. Every time you're about to tell me a story or take me somewhere, you're very easy to read. Big friend. Big friend." The nickname had emerged on the 3rd day, when Joel had reached a teddy bear someone had left on a high shelf in the pediatric playroom. "Thanks, big friend," Lena had said, and the name stuck. The routine established itself naturally. In the morning, after breakfast, they would visit Marley briefly. Joel would hold Lena in his lap so she could see her mother and talk to her, even though Marley was rarely conscious enough to respond. "Tell her about yesterday," Joel would encourage, and Lena would tell her about the drawings she'd made, about the kind nurse who brought extra cookies, about the funny doctor with the dinosaur tie. Later, while Marley received medical care, Joel would take Lena on Little's expeditions around the hospital. They explored the inner garden, where they counted the birds visiting the feeders. They discovered a small library on the 2nd floor with a colorful children's section. They found an aquarium in the main lobby with tropical fish that Lena christened with elaborate names. "This bright blue one is Mr. Sparkles," she explained seriously. "And the striped yellow one is Professor Sunshine." Joel listened attentively to each name, each story Lena invented about the fish. He realized that, slowly, he was getting to know her personality, her vivid imagination, her surprising sense of humor for someone so young, her ability to find joy even in the most difficult circumstances. During lunch, they would sit in the cafeteria, where Joel would try to convince her to eat vegetables. "Broccoli are miniature trees," he explained one day. "The miniature giants eat them." Lena looked at him skeptically. "You're not a miniature giant. How do you know?" "Giants don't wear ties," she replied with impeccable logic, pointing to the tie Joel was still wearing from the day it all happened. Joel laughed, defeated by childish logic. It was the first time he'd seen her genuinely smile since Marley's admission. In the afternoon, when Lena got restless, Joel would improvise games, counting colored tiles in the hallway, I Spy with objects in the waiting room, collaborative stories where each added a sentence. "Once upon a time, there was a girl who had a magical cat," Joel began. "The cat could talk, but only when the moon was full," Lena continued. "One night, the cat said, 'I have an important secret to tell you.' The secret was that he was actually an enchanted prince." The stories became increasingly elaborate, with dragons, castles, and fairies mingling with astronauts, robots, and spaceships. Joel discovered that Lena had a preference for happy endings, where families were reunited and everyone was okay. It wasn't hard to understand why. On the fifth day, Joel noticed that Lena was watching his wristwatch intently. "Do you like watches?" he asked. She nodded. "Mommy was saving money to get me one for my birthday. She showed me one in a magazine." "When is your birthday?" "In 2 weeks," Lena replied, looking away. "But it doesn't matter. I just want Mommy to get better." Joel felt a pang in his chest. He took off his watch and offered it to her. "Want to try it on?" Her eyes widened. It was an expensive watch, from a well-known Swiss brand. "Can I really?" "Of course." The watch swallowed her thin wrist, but Lena admired it as if it were a treasure. She spent the rest of the day looking at it, learning to tell time, announcing every few minutes what time it was. At bedtime, as Joel prepared her makeshift corner in the waiting room, she reluctantly held the watch back out to him. "Thank you, big friend." Joel hesitated, then closed her hand around the watch. "Keep it for now. So you'll always know what time it is." Lena's smile lit up her whole face. She jumped up, hugging him around the neck with surprising strength for someone so small. "I'll take great care of it, I promise." That night, when Lena finally fell asleep with the oversized watch carefully placed under her pillow, Joel realized something had changed. The scared little girl from the first day, so fragile and wary, now trusted him completely. She slept soundly, knowing he would be there when she woke up. And he would be. The certainty of it surprised him. In less than a week, his appointments, meetings, and projects had become secondary. The priority now was to be there, to ensure Lena had what she needed, that Marley received the best treatment, that neither of them felt alone. On the morning of the 10th day, Joel arrived with a small package wrapped in colorful paper. "What's this?" Lena asked, curious. "Open it and find out." Inside was a child's watch, with a purple strap and colorful numbers. It was nothing as sophisticated as his, but it was perfect for a small wrist. "Is it for me?" Lena asked, incredulous. "For you?" Joel smiled. "Now you can give me mine back." Lena laughed, a crystalline sound that echoed through the quiet hospital corridor. "You made that face again." "What face?" "The face of someone who's plotting something." She imitated his expression again, exaggerating the raised eyebrows. Joel shook his head, laughing. "I think you know me too well, little one." "It's because you're my big friend," Lena replied matter-of-factly, putting the new watch on her wrist with pride. "Best friends always know." Joel felt something warm expand in his chest. Best friend, it was a title he never expected to receive, especially from a 5-year-old. But there, in that hospital corridor, after 10 days of sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, eating cafeteria food, telling stories, and playing improvised games, he realized that was exactly what he had become. He was no longer a stranger trying to help. He wasn't just the man her mother had saved years ago. He was Lena's big friend, someone she trusted, someone who was part of her life now, and somehow, she had also become an essential part of his life, a part he didn't know was missing until he found her. "Good news," announced Dr. Lawson, looking over his reading glasses. "The results of the latest tests are promising. We can start planning for Mrs. Quinn's discharge at the end of the week." Joel felt relief wash over him like a warm wave. Beside him, Lena squeezed his hand tightly. "Does that mean Mommy is coming home?" she asked, her green eyes shining with hope. "Exactly," the doctor confirmed, smiling at the girl. "She'll still need care, lots of rest and medication, but she can recover at home." After 2 weeks in the hospital, the news seemed almost unreal. Joel watched Marley through the room's doorway. She was sleeping peacefully, without the oxygen mask for the first time since being admitted. The color had returned to her face, and her breathing, once so labored, now flowed naturally. "Should we tell her?" Lena was already pulling Joel toward the room. "Let her rest a little longer," he suggested gently. "And how about we take advantage of the day to do something special, just the two of us?" Lena's face lit up at the idea. She had spent nearly every minute of the last 2 weeks in the hospital, alternating between her mother's room and the waiting room that served as her makeshift bedroom. The hospital cafeteria waiting room routine was starting to weigh on her, even with all the games and stories Joel invented to distract her. "So how can we go to the park?" she asked, almost in a whisper, as if it were too big a request. "The park is just the beginning," Joel replied, smiling. "Today is a day just for you." The morning was perfect. Blue sky, bright sun, a gentle breeze that rustled the colorful autumn leaves. After checking with the nurses that they could be gone for a few hours, promising to keep his phone on at all times, Joel and Lena set off on their little adventure. The city's main park was bustling with families enjoying the good weather. Children ran, dogs barked happily, couples walked hand in hand. Joel watched as Lena took it all in with wide eyes, as if seeing colors for the first time after weeks in black and white. "Where should we start?" he asked. Lena looked around, undecided by so many possibilities. Then she pointed decisively at a huge spiral slide. There. For the next 2 hours, Joel rediscovered the park through Lena's eyes. Every slide was an adventure, every swing a chance to touch the sky with your feet, as she explained. Joel pushed the swing, spun carousels, held Lena at the top of the jungle gym, and pretended not to notice how much his adult knees protested as he squeezed into the children's play equipment. "Higher!" Lena shouted from the swing, laughing with abandon. "I want to fly like a bird," Joel obliged, amazed at the pure joy on her face. In 2 weeks, he had learned more about Lena than he thought possible. He knew she preferred everything purple, that she was afraid of spiders, but found caterpillars cute, that she loved stories about princesses who saved princes and not the other way around. He knew she scrunched her nose when she was thinking, held her breath when she was nervous, and had a laugh that started shy and ended in uncontrolled giggles. He knew she was the bravest person he had ever met. "I'm hungry," Lena finally announced, after conquering the slide for the 10th time. Joel pretended to consider deeply. What could we possibly eat on such a special day? A sandwich, salad? Lena rolled her eyes. "Ice cream, of course. Ice cream before lunch." Joel's eyes widened in fake shock. "I don't think your mum would approve." "She'll never know," Lena whispered with a conspiratorial wink. "It'll be our big friend's secret." Joel laughed. "Who taught you to negotiate like that?" "Mummy," Lena answered promptly. "She says we always have to try to get what we want in life." Something in the simplicity of the statement touched Joel deeply. Marley, with all her challenges, was raising a strong, determined, and joyful daughter. It was a kind of wealth his own father, with all his money and power, had never managed to provide. "Ice cream it is," he agreed, taking her hand, "but we eat something healthy afterward. Deal?" "Deal!" The nearest ice cream shop was small and cozy, with a bell that chimed when they entered. Lena's eyes widened at the dozens of colorful flavors displayed in the refrigerated counter. "Can I pick anyone?" she asked, pressing her hands against the glass. "Anyone," Joel confirmed, "and you can have a double scoop." If possible, her eyes grew even wider. "A double, for real?" Joel nodded, smiling at her excitement. Something as simple as a 2-scoop ice cream cone seemed to Lena the height of luxury. After a serious deliberation that lasted almost 10 minutes, including requests for samples of 3 different flavors, Lena finally decided mint, chocolate chip, and strawberry. Joel chose vanilla with caramel sauce, which made Lena wrinkle her nose. "Vanilla is so always boring," she declared. "It's a classic," Joel defended. "Sometimes the simplest things are the best." Sitting at a small table by the window, they watched people pass by as they enjoyed their ice cream. Lena had a smudge of chocolate at the corner of her mouth, but she looked so happy that Joel didn't have the heart to point it out. "Big friend?" she called, suddenly serious. "Yes? Thanks for today. It's the best day I've had since Mommy got sick." Joel felt a lump in his throat. "The pleasure is all mine, little one. When Mommy comes home, are you still going to visit us?" The question caught Joel by surprise. He hadn't thought much beyond Marley's recovery. Focused as he was on the day-to-day hospital life, the idea of not seeing Lena and Marley regularly created a strange emptiness in his chest. "If you want me to, of course I will." Lena nodded, satisfied. "I want you to, and Mommy will want you to too, even if she pretends she doesn't." Joel raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "She smiles differently when she talks to you," Lena explained with the surprising wisdom she sometimes showed. "It's not the smile she uses with the doctor or the nurses, it's the special smile." Before Joel could process this information, Lena had already changed the subject, pointing to a bookstore across the street. "Can we go there next? Mommy always takes me to pick out a book for my birthday, but we couldn't this year because she was sick." Joel looked at the bookstore, then at his watch. They still had a few hours before they needed to be back at the hospital. "Books and then a healthy lunch," he suggested. Lena's smile was answer enough. The bookstore was a paradise for a curious child like Lena. She wandered the aisles with reverence, running her small fingers over the colorful spines, opening books to smell the pages, marveling at the illustrations. Joel followed her patiently, watching how she examined each book with a seriousness as if it were the most important decision in the world. And for her, perhaps it was. "Can I choose anyone?" she asked, in the same way she had asked about the ice cream. "Anyone," Joel confirmed. "In fact, you can choose 3. The expression of shock and joy on Lena's face was worth every penny Joel knew he would spend. She hugged him impulsively, her little arms barely reaching his waist. "You're the best big friend in the whole world." After nearly an hour of careful deliberation, Lena finally selected her 3 treasures: a book about a girl who discovers she can talk to animals, another about space adventures, and a third with illustrated poems. "Mommy will love reading these with me," she said as they left the bookstore, clutching the bag of books as if it contained gold. "I'm sure she will," Joel agreed. "And you know what else she'll love? Coming back to a nice, clean and cozy home." Lena considered the idea. "Can we clean the apartment as a surprise?" "Exactly what I was thinking. And maybe even paint that peeling wall in the living room." Lena's eyes shone at the idea. "Can I help paint? I've always wanted to paint a real wall." "Of course you can. We'll be a team." After a substantial lunch, Joel insisted on vegetables, Lena negotiated for them to come with melted cheese on top. They made a quick stop at the hospital. Marley was awake, sitting up in bed, looking visibly better. "Mommy, we went to the park and had ice cream and bought books." Lena poured out the news all at once, climbing onto the bed to hug her mother. "Sounds like someone had a fun day," Marley commented, smiling as she stroked her daughter's hair. Her eyes met Joel's, full of gratitude. "I thought she deserved a break from the hospital," he explained. "Thank you," Marley said softly, "for taking such good care of her." "And now we're going to clean the house for when you get back," Lena announced. "We're going to paint and everything." Marley raised her eyebrows, looking at Joel. "Paint? Just a touch-up," he assured her. "Who's that peeling wall in the living room? Nothing drastic." Marley hesitated, and Joel realized she was uncomfortable with the idea of someone doing more for her, investing in her home. "Please, Mommy," Lena begged. "It'll look so pretty." Faced with her daughter's enthusiasm, Marley relented. "All right, but no going overboard, okay?" "Promise," Joel replied, with a smile he hoped was reassuring. "It'll just be enough to make everything cozy for your return." The home improvement store was another world for Lena. She watched, fascinated, as Joel selected cans of paint, brushes, rollers, masking tape and drop cloths to protect the floor. "So what color should we choose?" he asked. Lena studied the color swatches as if it were an important exam. "This one," she finally decided, pointing to a soft shade of blue. "It's the color of the sky when it's happy." Joel smiled at the description. "Happy sky blue it is." With the car full of supplies, they drove to the apartment. Joel realized he hadn't been there since the day he rushed Marley to the hospital. The place seemed smaller than he remembered, and a bit neglected after 2 weeks of being empty. "Where do we start?" Lena asked, already rolling up her sleeves like a professional. "First, we protect the furniture," Joel explained. "Then we prep the wall. Only then can we paint." They worked together like a well-oiled team. Joel taught, Lena learned quickly. He lifted her to reach the higher spots. She took care of the lower parts. Between tasks, they invented stories about what the stains on the old wall looked like. "This one looks like a sleeping dragon," Lena pointed out. "And that one over there is clearly a hippopotamus in a hat," Joel replied. When they finally started painting, Lena was beaming. Every brush stroke was an adventure. Every inch covered a victory. "We're making magic," she declared, "turning something old into new." Joel smiled, touched by her simple wisdom. "You are absolutely right." As Lena focused on her section of the wall, Joel began to organize the rest of the apartment. He washed the dishes piled in the sink, swept the floor, changed the sheets on Marley's bed. In her room, while putting some clothes away in the closet, he noticed a cardboard box partially hidden on the top shelf. He didn't mean to snoop, but the box was unstable, and when he tried to adjust it, it fell, scattering its contents across the floor. Crouching to pick up the items, mostly old papers, cards, and a few photos, Joel froze as he picked up a black and white photograph. His heart seemed to stop for a moment, then began to race uncontrollably. In the photo, a young man was embracing a beautiful dark-haired woman. They were smiling at the camera, clearly in love. The man was unmistakable, Joel's father, at least 30 years younger, but with the same strong features Joel saw in the mirror every day. And the woman, from her features, she could only be Marley's mother. Joel felt the blood drain from his face. With trembling hands, he turned the photo over. On the back was a date, May 17, 1987, and a single line of handwriting, "Forever R&E." Richard and who was E? Marley's mother, certainly. But how? When? His father was already married to his mother in 1987. Joel had been born in 1986. 1,000 questions exploded in his mind. Had his father cheated on his mother? Did Marley know about this? Was it possible that, "Big friend, come see how pretty it looks"? Lena's voice brought him back to reality. Quickly, Joel slipped the photo into his shirt pocket and put the rest of the items back in the box, returning it to the shelf. "Coming," he answered, trying to control his voice. When he entered the living room, Lena was standing proudly beside the freshly painted wall. The happy sky blue had transformed the room, making it brighter and more welcoming. "Isn't it perfect?" she asked. "Radiant." Joel forced a smile, trying to push away the turmoil in his mind. "Absolutely perfect." Lena tilted her head, observing him with those perceptive green eyes. "Sounds you're making a weird face." "I'm just tired," he lied. "Painting is hard work." She didn't seem entirely convinced, but accepted the explanation. "Can we get Mommy's room ready now? I want it to be really nice for when she comes back." Joel nodded, the photo burning in his pocket like a dangerous secret. The resemblance between Lena and his father, which he had never noticed before, now seemed glaring. Was it possible that Marley was... that Lena was... "Big friend, are you coming?" Lena was already in the hallway, waiting for him. "I'm coming," Joel replied, pushing the questions to the back of his mind. Today was a day for Lena, and he wouldn't let anything, not even a potentially devastating revelation, ruin it. But as he followed the girl down the hall, a certainty formed in his heart. He had to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Marley's discharge day arrived with a cloudy sky and a light drizzle that painted the city in shades of grey. Joel drove in silence, the windshield wipers marking a steady rhythm that matched the frantic beat of his heart. In the back seat, Lena hummed happily, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. 3 days had passed since he found the photograph. 3 days of sleepless nights, of researching his father's past, of connecting dots he never knew existed. 3 days of carrying a secret that weighed like lead in his pocket, literally, as the photo hadn't left it since. "Big friend, you're very quiet," Lena observed, leaning between the front seats. "Are you sad?" Joel forced a smile in the rearview mirror. "Just concentrating on the rain, little one. I'm happy your mom is finally coming home." "Me too." So I made a surprise for her. I drew a picture and hid it under her pillow. "She's going to love it," Joel replied automatically as he parked in front of the hospital. In the lobby, Marley was already waiting for them, sitting in a wheelchair as per hospital protocol, though she looked strong enough to walk on her own. She was wearing the clothes Joel and Lena had brought the day before: jeans, a simple blouse, and a light jacket. Even in her simplicity, even after weeks in the hospital, there was an innate dignity about her that Joel now recognized in himself. "Mommy!" Lena ran ahead, throwing herself into her mother's arms with abandon. "Careful, sweetie. Your mom is still recovering," the nurse cautioned. But Marley was already hugging her daughter tightly, burying her face in her hair as if trying to absorb every particle of her being. "It's okay," she told the nurse. "This hug is the best medicine I could ask for." Joel watched the scene from a distance, suddenly feeling like an intruder. The past weeks had created an intimacy between him and Lena, a comfortable routine of care and affection. But now, with Marley back, the boundaries would need to be redrawn. And there was the photo, the secret, the truth that could change everything. "Joel." Marley's voice brought him back to the moment. She was smiling at him, extending her hand. Thank you for being here, for everything you've done." He took her hand, noticing for the first time how her long, slender fingers were shaped just like his. How had he never seen it before? "Shall we go home?" he suggested, trying to keep his voice steady. The apartment felt different, not just because of the freshly painted wall or the meticulous organization Joel and Lena had carried out, but because of something more subtle, a presence, an energy that had been absent during Marley's hospitalization. "Wow," she exclaimed upon entering, looking around with genuine admiration. "You two did an incredible job in here." "I painted that whole bottom part myself," Lena announced proudly, pointing to the blue wall. "And Big Friend did the rest. It looks nice, right?" "It's beautiful," Marley agreed. It doesn't even look like the same place." As Lena pulled her mother along to show her all the improvements they had made, the washed curtains, the organized closets, the small repairs, Joel remained standing in the living room, feeling the weight of the photograph in his pocket. He had to tell her. Today. Before more time passed, before their bond strengthened further under false pretenses. "Lena," he called, interrupting the girl's excited tour. "Your mum needs to rest a bit. Why don't you go make that special tea we learned, the one with honey and lemon?" Lena's eyes lit up with the responsibility. "Good idea, it's the best tea in the world for a sore throat, Mommy. I'll make it right now." When the girl disappeared into the kitchen, Marley looked at Joel with a curious expression. "You seem tense," she observed. "Is everything okay?" Joel hesitated, then gestured to the sofa. "Can we talk for a minute?" They sat with enough distance between them for Joel to observe her reactions. Carefully, he took the photograph from his pocket and held it out, saying nothing. Marley took the photo, confused at first. Then, as she recognized the image, her face went pale. Her eyes lifted to meet Joel's, full of unasked questions. "So where did you—" "I found it when we were cleaning the apartment," he explained, keeping his voice low so Lena wouldn't hear from the kitchen. "It was in a box in your closet." Marley looked at the photo again, running her fingers over the worn surface as if trying to connect with the past captured there. "This man," Joel continued, with a calmness he had mentally rehearsed dozens of times, "is Richard Marston, my father." The silence that followed seemed to have a substance of its own, dense and heavy between them. Joel could hear Lena humming in the kitchen, the clinking of spoons against mugs, everyday sounds that contrasted with the magnitude of the moment. Finally, Marley took a deep breath and nodded slightly. "My mother told me she had an affair with him," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "She only found out he was married when she was already pregnant. She walked away. She kept this photo and never told anyone." The words confirmed what Joel already suspected, but they still felt like a punch to the gut. He closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the impact. "She never told him about the pregnancy." Marley shook her head. "She didn't want to destroy a family. She preferred to raise her daughter alone, without complications. She only told me who my father was when she got sick, shortly before she died. She gave me this photo and said that if I ever wanted to find him, it was my right. But you never looked for him. I didn't see a reason to. I grew up just fine, even without a father. My mother was amazing. She gave me everything I needed." She hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen where Lena was still busy with the tea. "When I found out I was pregnant with Lena and her father, well, when he didn't want to take responsibility, I remembered my mother's story. So I thought maybe it was the fate of the women in my family to raise their children alone." Joel felt a wave of conflicting emotions, anger at his father for his betrayals, admiration for the women who faced life without support, sadness for the lost years, for the distance from a sister he never knew he had. "So that man is my father too," he said finally, the words coming out like a confession. Marley looked up at him, understanding slowly dawning on her face. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, seeing one another through a completely new lens. "We're half-siblings," Joel completed, "and Lena is my niece." The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. Niece and family, his own blood. "The tea is ready," Lena announced, entering the living room with a carefully balanced tray. She stopped when she saw the serious expressions on the adults' faces. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Marley quickly put the photo away and smiled at her daughter. "Nothing, sweetie. We were just talking about grown-up stuff. Boring stuff then?" Lena concluded, placing the tray on the coffee table. "I made the tea exactly how Big Friend taught me. 3-minute steeping, 1 spoonful of honey, and a little bit of lemon." Joel watched the girl, his niece, with new eyes. The same green eyes as her mother, the same chin shape he recognized from his own childhood photos. How had he not seen it before? "It looks perfect," he said, his voice slightly hoarse, as Lena served the tea, chattering about how she would take care of her mom now that she was home. Joel and Marley continued to exchange meaningful glances. There was no anger, no accusation, just the mutual understanding that the chance encounter that brought them together was no chance at all. It was blood calling to blood. It was a circle closing. It was years of silence finally being mended. "Big Friend, are you having dinner with us tonight?" Lena asked, handing him a cup of tea. Joel looked at Marley, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "Yes, little one," he replied. "I think we have a lot to talk about." Lena looked from one to the other, sensing the tension in the air. "You two we have a secret, faces." Marley exchanged a look with Joel. There was a question in that look, a decision to be made. Joel nodded gently. "Lena," Marley began, patting the sofa beside her, "come sit here with us. We have something important to tell you." The girl obeyed, her green eyes attentive, sensing the seriousness of the moment. "Remember when we talked about Mommy's mommy? Your grandma you never met?" Lena nodded. "She's in heaven." "You said she was very brave." "That's right," Marley agreed, taking out the photo she had put away and holding it carefully. "This is a picture of her when she was young." Lena examined the image, curious. "She was pretty. Who's the man with her?" Marley took a deep breath. "This man is Joel's father." The girl frowned, confused. "Tamarik Friend's dad?" "Yes," Joel replied, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. "And he's also your mommy's father." Lena looked from the photo to the adults, her small face a mixture of confusion and concentration as she tried to process the information. "Does that mean," she began slowly, "that Mommy and Joel are brother and sister?" Marley completed gently. "Half-brother and sister, actually. They have the same dad but different mums." Lena's eyes widened. understanding finally dawning. So, if you're brother and sister, that means big friend is my uncle, Joel said, the word sounding both strange and perfectly right on his lips. I'm your uncle, Lena. A moment of silence as the girl processed the revelation. Then, suddenly, her face lit up with a smile so radiant it seemed to illuminate the entire room. I have an uncle, she exclaimed, jumping off the sofa in pure joy. A real uncle. The reaction was so pure, so uncomplicated, that Joel felt a lump in his throat. For Lena, there were no complexities, old heartaches, or painful secrets. There was only the simple joy of discovering that her big friend was, in fact, family. That explains why you have the same nose, she continued, looking from one to the other with new understanding, and the same way of smiling with just one side of your mouth. Joel and Marley looked at each other, surprised, having never noticed these similarities. Gertie, and that's why you showed up to help us, Lena concluded, as if everything finally made sense in her world. Because family always helps each other, even when they don't know their family. The innocent wisdom of the observation struck Joel and Marley simultaneously. There was a profound truth in the child's words, a connection that existed even before it was acknowledged. Does this mean you'll always be with us? Lena asked, her eyes shining with hope. Joel smiled, touched by the simplicity and depth of the question. Yes, little one, we're family now. I knew it, Lena exclaimed, clapping her hands with joy. I always knew you were special. In a sudden movement, she threw herself into Joel's arms, hugging him with all the strength her small arms could muster. Uncle Joel, she tried out, testing the words as if tasting a new flavor. I like you very, very much. Joel hugged her back, an overwhelming emotion taking hold of him. The simplicity of a child's love, so direct, so pure, touched him deeply. I like you very much too, little one, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Marley watched the scene with tears in her eyes, a hand covering her mouth to stifle her emotion. When Joel looked up at her, he saw in those eyes so much like his own, a mixture of gratitude, relief, and something more, something new beginning to grow between them. A sibling connection, long denied, finally acknowledged. The Marston mansion stood on the hill like a monument to wealth and power. Stone walls, tall windows, an impeccably manicured garden, everything exuded permanence, tradition, solidity. Joel had grown up in that house, but he had never called it home. It was more of a museum than a place of affection, more a statement of status than a refuge. Is this where you grew up? Marley asked, looking at the property from the car window. Joel nodded, parking in the circular driveway. The great American dream, at least on the surface. A week had passed since the revelation, a week of intense conversations, of shared stories, of pieces of a family puzzle finally fitting together. Joel and Marley had decided it was time to confront the source of it all, Richard Marston, the patriarch, the father of them both. Are you sure you want to do this? Joel asked, turning off the engine. Marley looked at the mansion, her face a mask of tranquility. I'm not here to demand anything or cause trouble. I just want him to know the truth, that I exist. Joel admired her serenity. If it were him discovering he had been denied a father figure his whole life, he wouldn't be so peaceful. But Marley seemed genuinely uninterested in any material or emotional compensation. It was simply a matter of truth, of existing in the eyes of the one who created her, even if unintentionally. He's not expecting visitors, Joel warned, and he's never been good with surprises. Are you giving me an out? Marley smiled slightly. Can I still change my mind? Always, he replied seriously. We don't have to do this. Marley looked at the mansion again, then at Joel. Yes, we do. Not for me or for him, but for Lena, so that she never has to wonder about her roots. Like I did. Joel nodded, understanding. This visit wasn't about the past, but about the future, about clearing the path for the next generation. They got out of the car and walked to the main door. The maid who answered recognized Joel immediately. Mr. Marston, what a pleasant surprise. Your father is in his study. Thank you, Clara. I'll announce us. Joel led Marley through the silent corridors, past family portraits that told only half the story. Him, his parents, his grandparents, generations of Marstons staring solemnly from the walls, never imagining that a part of their lineage was growing up on the other side of town, unseen, unrecognized. They stopped before a solid oak door. Joel knocked twice, the sound echoing like a premonition. "Enter." The voice from the other side was strong, authoritative, even at 70 years old. Richard Marston was sitting behind a massive desk, surrounded by books and files. He still had an imposing presence, straight back, perfectly combed grey hair, sharp eyes that assessed the world as a series of transactions to be negotiated. "Joel," he said, looking up from the papers he was examining, "I didn't know you were coming today." His gaze then fixed on Marley, and something, a spark of recognition perhaps, flashed across his face, quickly replaced by the neutral expression of someone sizing up a stranger. "Father," Joel began, keeping his voice firm, "this is Marley Quinn." The name didn't seem to mean anything to Richard, who nodded politely. "Miss Quinn, how can I help you?" Joel exchanged a look with Marley, who took a small step forward. "Mr. Marston," she said, her voice calm. "My mother's name was Eleanor Quinn." The effect was immediate. Richard visibly paled, his fingers gripping the pen he held so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Eleanor," he repeated, almost a whisper. Then, composing himself, "I knew an Eleanor many years ago. 34 years ago, to be exact," Marley continued. "You met at a conference in Chicago. You had a relationship that lasted almost 6 months." Richard looked at Joel, a silent question in his eyes. "Marley is my sister, father," Joel said simply. "Your daughter with Eleanor Quinn." A heavy silence filled the study. Richard stood up slowly, as if he needed all his strength to bear the weight of that revelation. He walked to the window, looking out at the gardens, but Joel knew he was seeing nothing but the past that was suddenly resurfacing. "Eleanor disappeared," he said finally, his voice stripped of its usual authority. "She never said she was pregnant." "She found out you were married," Marley replied serenely. "She found out when she was already expecting your child." Richard turned, his eyes studying Marley's face as if searching for traces of himself, evidence of the truth she presented. "How do I know this is true?" he asked, the coldness returning to his voice. "After all these years, how can I know you are really my daughter?" Joel felt a wave of anger rise within him. "For God's sake, father, look at her. Look at us standing side by side. Don't you see the resemblance?" Richard looked, and Joel knew he saw it. The same eye shape, the same straight nose, the same lines around the mouth that appeared when they smiled. "Why now?" Richard asked, turning to Marley. "What do you want?" The question was raw, direct, typical of a man accustomed to negotiations and hidden motives. Marley was unfazed. "I don't want anything," she answered with dignity. "Not money, not public recognition, not a place in your life. I grew up just fine without needing you." "Then why are you here?" "Because the truth matters, because I have a daughter who deserves to know where she comes from. Because my mother kept this secret until the end of her life, and only told me before she died." Richard sat back down, the weight of the revelation visibly affecting him. "Eleanor never wanted to confront me. She didn't want to destroy your family," Marley explained. She preferred to raise her daughter alone, with dignity, rather than cause a scandal. Richard looked down, something akin to shame crossing his normally impassive face. "A remarkable woman," he murmured. "Yes," Marley agreed. "She was." Joel watched the scene with a mix of emotions. Anger at his father for his cold reaction, pride in Marley for her serenity, relief at finally bringing to light a secret buried for decades. "And your daughter?" Richard asked suddenly. "How old is she?" 5, Marley replied. "Her name is Lena. My granddaughter." The words sounded strange on Richard's lips. "Yes." "And Joel's niece." Richard looked at his son, an unasked question in his eyes. "We're a family now, father," Joel said firmly. "Marley, Lena, and me. Chance brought us together, and blood confirmed what we already felt." "And you want me to—" "We're not asking for anything," Marley interrupted. "We only came because the truth deserves to exist. What you do with it is your choice." Richard Marston, the man Joel had known as infallible, unshakable, suddenly seemed old and vulnerable before Marley's simple integrity. "I would like to meet her," he said finally. "Your daughter, if you'll allow it." Marley nodded slightly. She would be happy to have another grandfather. When they left the mansion, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Joel felt as if a weight had been lifted, not completely, but enough to breathe more freely. "Are you okay?" he asked Marley as they got into the car. She looked one last time at the imposing house, then smiled. "I'm at peace," she answered simply. "The truth exists now, that's all I wanted." As they drove down the hill, leaving the Marston mansion behind, Joel thought about how the past and present had intertwined in unexpected ways, creating new paths for the future. A future where his niece would grow up knowing all her roots, where secrets would no longer cast shadows over the next generations. A future where the truth, finally, could exist in the light of day. Spring arrived like a perfect metaphor. The winter had been long and difficult, Marley's illness, the weeks in the hospital, the revelations about the past. But now, as the first flowers bloomed in the park's flower beds, something new was also blooming in their lives. "Are you sure about this?" Marley asked, looking at the contract on the table. "It's a big step." Joel smiled, pushing the pen toward her. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The document was simple and direct. Marley Quinn was to become a minority partner in Marston Consulting, with a 30% stake and the position of Chief Operating Officer, an impressive title for someone who, 3 months earlier, was struggling to pay bills by selling handmade dolls. "You barely know me," she argued, still hesitant. "How do you know I'm capable of this?" "First, I know you better than you think. Second, I've seen how you manage a household on limited resources, how you care for Lena, how you face challenges. Third, you have my blood." Joel smiled. "And finally, you have a business degree that's been collecting dust for years while you worked 3 different jobs to get by." Marley shook her head, still not entirely convinced. "Tarsam, a dusty degree doesn't equal real-world experience. You managed that craft store for 2 years and made it the most profitable in the chain before you left to take care of Lena full-time," Joel countered. "I read your references. You have a natural talent for business, you just lacked the opportunity." Finally, Marley picked up the pen. Her hand trembled slightly, but her signature came out firm and decisive. "Welcome to the family business, partner," Joel said, formally extending his hand, but with a warm smile. Marley shook his hand, laughing. "This is so surreal." "What's surreal?" asked Lena, entering the room with a colorful book under her arm. At 5 years old, she had a knack for showing up at important moments. "Your mom works with me now," Joel explained. "She's part of the company." Lena's eyes widened. "Does that mean you're going to work together every day?" "Exactly," Marley confirmed, placing the signed contract in her briefcase. "And it means we can get an office closer to home now," Joel added. "I'm thinking of opening a branch here in the neighborhood." This was news even to Marley, who looked at him in surprise. "Really?" Joel shrugged, as if it were no big deal. "The building on Palmer Street is for sale. It's in a good location, has enough space for a small team, and it's 5 blocks from here." "And 3 blocks from my school," added Lena, who had clearly memorized the neighborhood's geography. Joel winked at her. "Exactly. That makes it easier for your mom to pick you up after school." In truth, the decision to open an office in that neighborhood was about more than convenience. In recent months, Joel had spent so much time in Marley and Lena's small apartment that his own penthouse downtown felt more and more like an empty shell, a transient space. Here, in this simple but welcoming neighborhood, he had found something he had been searching for without knowing it, a sense of belonging. The routine settled in with surprising ease. Marley, always an early riser, took to arriving at the main Marston Consulting office early. The employees, initially curious about the new director who shared the founder's last name, soon came to respect her for her work, not her family connection. Joel divided his time between the main office and the new neighborhood branch, which had become a sort of incubator for social projects he had always wanted to implement, but never found a place for in the company's traditional structure. Sunday mornings became sacred, leisurely breakfasts at Marley and Lena's apartment, with pancakes, fruit, and laughter. Sometimes, Joel would fall asleep on the couch after dinners that stretched into long conversations. Other times, Marley would visit him downtown, admiring the view from the penthouse apartment while they discussed business strategies. They were a makeshift family, built not on traditional conventions but on daily choices, small moments of connection, decisions to be present even when it wasn't required. "He's nervous," Joel commented, watching from the window as the black car parked in front of the building. Marley came closer, following his gaze. "You can tell by the way he's adjusted his tie 3 times before getting out of the car." Richard Marston, always impeccably dressed, seemed out of place in this simple neighborhood. He carried a package wrapped in colorful paper and looked at the building as if assessing its structural stability. "I think this is the first time he's visited a place like this since never," Joel observed. "Do you think this is a good idea?" Marley asked, concern evident in her voice. "Introducing him to Lena like this?" Joel understood her hesitation. There was so much at stake: Lena's innocence, the complex family past, Richard's difficult personality. "He's trying," he finally replied, "in his own way. And Lena deserves to know all her grandparents, even the complicated ones." The doorbell rang. Lena, who was coloring at the kitchen table, looked up curiously. "Who is it?" she asked. Marley took a deep breath. "It's a family member who came to meet you. Someone very special." Joel opened the door. Richard stood in the hallway, stiffer than ever, the gift in his hands like a shield. "Father," Joel greeted. "Come in." Richard took 2 steps inside and stopped, his eyes scanning the apartment. Joel could imagine what he was seeing, the small but cozy space, so different from the cold mansion where he had raised his son. Lena's drawings hanging on the wall, the plants on the windowsill, the books piled in the corner of the room. A home, not just a place to live. "Thank you for the invitation," Richard said formally. Marley approached, extending her hand. "Welcome to our home." There was a nobility in her simplicity that seemed to unsettle Richard. He shook her hand with genuine respect. "I brought something for your daughter," he said, indicating the package. At that moment, as if on cue, Lena appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was wearing a purple dress, her favorite color, and she observed the visitor with casual curiosity. "Hello," she said, approaching without shyness. "I'm Lena. Are you Uncle Joel's friend?" Richard looked at Joel, then at Marley, momentarily speechless. It was probably the first time in decades that someone had left him without a response. "This is Richard," Marley introduced gently. "He's Joel's father, and he's also my father." Lena processed the information with the simple, direct logic of a child. "So you're my grandpa?" The word hung in the air, laden with a weight the girl couldn't comprehend. Grandpa, a title that carried untold stories, past choices, blood connections that transcended time. "Yes," Richard finally answered, his voice softer than Joel had ever heard it. "I am your grandfather," Lena smiled, completely oblivious to the emotional complexity of the moment. "Cool. I've never had a grandpa before. What's in the package?" Richard knelt, bringing himself to her level, another gesture Joel had never seen him make, and held out the gift. "Share something I thought you might like." Lena opened the package with the excitement typical of her age. Inside was a beautiful, well-preserved antique doll with dark hair and green eyes, dressed in carefully hand-sewn clothes. "It belonged to your grandmother," Richard explained. "Joel's mother. She kept it all these years." Joel felt a lump in his throat. He never knew his mother had kept that childhood doll. It was a surprisingly sentimental gesture from Richard, almost a silent acknowledgement that the new generation deserved a connection the previous ones had lost. "She's beautiful," Lena whispered, hugging the doll carefully. Then, to everyone's surprise, she approached Richard and hugged his legs. "Thank you, Grandpa." Joel saw something he never imagined he would witness, his father's eyes welling up, his rigid posture momentarily broken by a child's spontaneous hug. The dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Richard, always formal in expensive restaurants, seemed to genuinely enjoy the simple meal Marley had prepared. He complimented the food, asked Lena questions about school, and listened with interest as Joel explained the company's new projects. It was as if, by entering that small apartment, He had left behind the weight of being Richard Marston, the tycoon, and could simply be Richard, the father, the grandfather. When dessert, a homemade pudding Lena had helped make, was served, the girl looked around the table with a thoughtful expression that seemed beyond her 5 years. "You know something," she said, suddenly taking the hands of Joel and Marley, who were sitting beside her. "Maybe fate brought us together to become a family." The observation, made with the innocence and wisdom only children possess, silenced the table. Joel looked up and met Marley's gaze. In that moment of silent connection, they shared more than words could ever express. It hadn't been luck nor charity, not even chance, that had brought them together. There was something deeper, a purpose that transcended coincidences and individual choices. "I think you're right, little one," Joel finally replied, his voice soft. "Fate has interesting ways of working." "And sometimes," Marley added, "the real miracle isn't the initial meeting, but what's born from it." Richard watched the scene with an expression that mixed admiration with a pang of regret, perhaps for the lost years, for the connections he could have formed but let slip away. Later, after Lena was in bed and Richard had said goodbye, promising to return the following week, Joel and Marley sat on the small apartment balcony, sharing the comfortable silence they had grown to appreciate. "I never imagined my life could change so much in such a short time," Marley commented, looking at the stars that stubbornly shone through the city's light pollution. "Me neither," Joel agreed. "It's funny how we spend years building careers, accumulating things, following routines, and then, suddenly, something happens, and we realize none of that was really important." "What is important then?" she asked, turning to face him. Joel smiled, feeling a peace he had unknowingly searched for his whole life. "This being here. Belonging. Having people to care about more than yourself." Marley nodded, understanding perfectly. "A real new beginning." "Exactly," Joel agreed. "Or not just a new chapter, but a new way of being." As the night wore on and the city gradually quieted, the two remained side by side, united not only by the blood they shared, but by something equally powerful, the conscious choice to be a family, to build something together that neither of them could have created alone. A real new beginning, founded not on obligation or expectation, but on dignity, care, and time. The kind of new beginning that is built day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. The kind of new beginning that, with any luck, lasts forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.